It's RJ back again, once again, with Rory. Here we are to break down everything and everything qualifying related. So many good storylines. We started off with Ferrari, Charles Leclerc on pole. Immediate reaction, Rory. Are you surprised your boy Max is not sitting there instead?
No, I think the Ferraris were hiding their pace all along. Like you saw in this Q1 that they had pace, but before that they showed glimmers of it. But no, I think it was only like a tenth between Leclerc and Verstappen, so it was close.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Christian Horner said that Verstappen had a mistake in the last corner, so he could have been even closer, even on pole. But I'm happy for Ferrari, so I'm not surprised. But it's going to be a close race tomorrow, anyway. Let's say that.
Oh, definitely will be. Yeah, I got the vibe at the very end. Carlos definitely wanted to be on pole over Leclerc, and I think for Ferrari fans, Leclerc at the end, what more or less had mentioned, he's got a lot of work to do, which if you're a Ferrari fan, that just has to be music to your ears. You got to be really happy with that fact. And I believe it was 5 cars that were into Q3 or at least past Q2 that were Ferrari power units, and Mercedes, being powering Aston Martin as well, and Williams, or is it McLaren, if I'm not mistaken?
So I think it was Q1. It
Mm-hmm.
was one Red Bull powertrains, which is Honda basically. And McLaren is Mercedes, two Aston Martins, which is Mercedes as well, and a Williams. So yeah, and then I think it was like it's Q2 that it was like some 5 out of 6 Ferrari. Like I think all 6 Ferrari cars made it into Q2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be pretty happy with that. One thing that I thought was interesting as well with that, we had that whole talk about Mercedes, quote unquote, are they sandbagging? I don't obviously think that's in the case. I do find it very ironic that Valtteri does outperform George Russell in the first race of the season. There's got to be some irony there.
Yeah.
I got to imagine if you're Valtteri, you got to be pretty happy with it. If you're a Mercedes fan, I don't know how you feel about that fact. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd be
I
curious to see what Dens would have to think on that one.
yeah, I don't think then I say I was talking to a few Mercedes fans in the Twitter space there, and they're happy for what this Mercedes where they are at the minute. But I definitely think Mercedes in the next few races will be closer. But
Mm-hmm.
I for Russell, yeah, I think it was like in a previous one of our spaces a few days ago, someone saying like would a question Russell be able to handle the pressure of Mercedes? And you could say like he was leading Lewis in the practice sessions, but he kind of fell down the order. Like I think he was 1.6 seconds off Lewis, and about
Mm-hmm.
nearly 2 seconds off Max, altogether, no, off Leclerc, sorry, I think. But yeah, definitely, like being for Mercedes being for Russell being out qualified by Alonso, Magnussen, and Bottas is pretty. It's strange to say, not say the least. Or for what we're used to Mercedes being.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that obviously Mercedes, quote unquote, can't fix. In the interviews yesterday with Lewis and George, they didn't expect, I think, too much of a surprise with the car there, and it's definitely going to take a few races. But the beauty of the whole season, I think, just breaking down what we've seen now and looking forward, it's 23 races.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So there will be a lot of twists and turns, literally and figuratively. And I know George Russell, even on that last lap, they were even highlighting that he had braked a little bit later and then caused him, more or less to not catch the apex there. So
Mm-hmm.
he definitely had a mental mistake, but I think going forward, it's you'd expect them to iron out any details. And
Mm-hmm.
it's even more surprising to me because at this point last year, you may think George and a Williams team is down in P18, somewhere really low. And this
Mm-hmm.
week we got Daniel Ricciardo in P18. I know we're both Daniel Ricciardo fans.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a reaction from you on that?
I actually predicted there, that my bottom three was going to be Ricardo, Joe, and
Mm-hmm.
Alon, which I got one correct. But
Yep.
I think Ricardo, he missed 3 days of testing in Bahrain. He only before that he only had 1.5 days in the car and some filming days. And then like he had a water leak, yes, on free practice 2, which was out for most of the session, and he missed most of the FP3 today as well with the water leak. So yeah, I was expecting it. I don't think he was as comfortable in the car, but that McLaren didn't have raw pace today. Like even Lando couldn't, like what Lando doesn't qualify and couldn't even get into like the top 10. So yeah, I felt bad for Ricciardo, but it
Mhm.
was out of his control what happened to him, if you get me.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that. I mean, it's hard. Obviously, Ricardo not having the practice, coming back from COVID, we don't know how sick or sick he wasn't. So there's always that physical aspect, even if the car did have the pace where he's at. But I mean, you would hope for his sake, it can only go up from here. He's obviously started off the season on the proverbial back foot, just with everything. But the bigger shock to me, more down at the end of the pack there, was the fact that Hulkenberg, who hasn't raced since October of 2020. Thank you, F1 Twitter, for these facts. Credit where credit is due. And he outperforms Stroll. Obviously, Stroll's had more time with the car itself, going to the factory, everything like that. I know we're going to get into Magnussen being back, but is this more a story of Hulkenberg being back in some degrees, or Stroll just early signs of really struggling? Or both, Aston
It's
Martin just being bad?
Yeah, I think I didn't see Aston Martin this year improving anyway. I saw them going like a little bit off the table, but like where did they finish last year? I think they finished like seventh. I think I predicted them to be
Mhm.
seventh again this year. So, I think yeah, I just think with the Aston Martin didn't have any pace, but like fair play to Hulkenberg. Like not even didn't even have like he's been in the simulator, but simulator to a real car is different in many ways, a lot of ways actually, but definitely, I think, yeah, it's Hulkenberg for what he came back only like he got like 3 practice sessions in and he did amazing. Like I think yeah, Stroll could be just underperforming or he's not comfortable with the car, but it's a big shock. I was shocked to see Hulkenberg beat Stroll. Like he's only 17th. I don't know how far he was off P15, but yeah, still it
Mhm.
was like I hope he does well in the race tomorrow. He could get points if something crazy happens, but I hope he beats Stroll anyway tomorrow.
Yeah, and you just brought up a point there as we kind of make our way up the grid with other teams. The one thing I was going to say is the bigger factor, I think, is in qualifying. This is, obviously we're qualifying at night, a relatively dry circuit. We have no idea long term if some teams are going to be better suited to it just with more reliability with their car, even though their cars might technically be slower in the
Mhm.
beginning. So that'll be interesting to see. That could obviously benefit someone like Ricciardo, who was struggling or was just a little bit slower today as time goes on. What are your thoughts on Haas?
Haas are back.
KMag, I love it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
What's the music, the sound for like the return or someone like just insert that and put KMag back. But yeah, he I feel so happy for him. He had to struggle with that like in the Haas in 2020, and he was like he said he was never going to come back to F1. He wrote a book about all the things that happened with him and Haas, and he
Mhm.
was making memes on Instagram about the Haas, and now he's racing in that Haas. So yeah, I am happy. Like I'm sad that he had a hydraulics issue, which
Mhm.
like it stopped him like from like kind of improving. That he had to kind of take care of the car when he's going around on his one run in Q3. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, if I think if Haas like it could be concerns more about their hydraulics, about their reliability for tomorrow. But yeah, I think Haas could actually get points even with Schumacher tomorrow. Definitely points are on the table on the cars tomorrow. They have a competitive car. I thought Haas like I was just thinking to myself like if Haas get like top 5 or something like that, like even like top 6, no top 7 is even brilliant for where they were. It's a massive improvement.
No, I definitely think you're right. And I'm going to knock on wood right now because it would be so Haas, such a jinx that their car KMag tomorrow gets a DNF because of some hydraulic issue. Like that would be such a classic Haas move
Mhm.
with them. But it, the fact that, based on what we had last year and what we saw initially in some of the practice sessions, I'm like, I don't really know if they're going to be able to keep this pace up, if you will. And the fact that they did, I was pleasantly surprised. And I looked there, you got him sandwiched between Bottas and Alonso. Um, Funny enough, Bottas and Hamilton will be staring each other across in the eyes in some ways tomorrow, which I think is going to be absolutely great. But America's team, in some ways, Gene Haas, that team has undergone so much with, the whole controversy with Russia. So it is really nice to see them back up and hopefully in the points tomorrow.
Mhm.
With that too being said, how about Fernando Alonso silently working his way back, the speedster, back into the top 10?
Yeah, I think like I thought Alpine were going to be lower. In fairness, like they do have like they brought upgrades to this race weekend as well. But yeah, I think he went under the radar definitely. Like, and I think he out qualifying Russell as well. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that Alpine it's the other question is, will the reliability hold up? Like, will everyone's reliability hold up? Like, even before, like Bottas had to get a new power unit before this qualifying session, so he's taken one out of his he's on 2 engines now out of his 3 he has to use. Ricciardo, no, Ocon and Perez had to take a gearbox out of one of their 4 for this season. So yeah, I think it's going to be like, even the commentator, I think Martin Brundle was saying there, like the reliability is going to be massive tomorrow. Like, who will finish the race, like because of reliability. And as well, they're saying about the E10 fuel. They're saying that because when the engine gets low, when it gets down to minimum fuel bit, the E10 fuel decides to, like, it kind of gets a hotter in the fuel tank, so you might see engines actually start to explode tomorrow, like, which you don't want to see. But yeah, it could cause a lot of DNFs tomorrow with the new fuel as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Man, we'll see. I gotta imagine that, there's a lot of talk in a lot of the Twitter spaces that we've both been in, people
Hmm.
claiming that, Max is a dangerous driver, a little more on the edge than Hamilton at times, where people think Hamilton can deliver the car more safely than Max can. Um, are you betting on a safety car after that first corner here tomorrow? Because that's a long straightaway, and something tells me your boy Verstappen's going to be completely elbows out against
Yeah.
those two Ferraris in front and behind him, trying to get the slipstream going.
Yeah, let's say I will not be going on a Twitter space if there is controversy after that turn one instant, if there is any. But I do think, yes, Max will be elbows out. He'd be disappointed that he didn't get pole by only, like, that he missed out by a tenth. But yeah, I definitely think, yeah, it's going to be him and Leclerc. Like, they've had history in karting. If you want, there's a iconic interview between Max and Leclerc when they're like only like 10 or so. It's on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter and on YouTube, where they're like, basically they've had, like, they're basically going at each other because of what Max antics on. They collided, I think, in karting, something like that. I don't know the full story of it, but yeah, like that. Yeah, they have history between the two of them. And even if you saw the 2019 Austrian Grand Prix, where Max forced Leclerc off the road and went on to win the Grand Prix in the last few laps. In Silverstone 2019 as well, where Leclerc forced Verstappen off the track and made him go completely, like, off the track.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what corner it was, but yeah, they're going to fight each other to the races tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can try to drag that up here and include it with this, because that would definitely be interesting to see, and kind of almost pretty funny to see him 10 years old going back to after it. So we've gone kind of up and down the grid. Obviously, we can, roughly know based on qualifying, maybe some idea where the teams sit. Safety cars, I'm going to guess,
Mhm.
is definitely going to come out, controversy or not. You got to imagine it, just with the reliability and not knowing
Yeah.
yet. I'm going to imagine there's going to be at least one. I'd probably say likely two. Tomorrow, though, just race predictions in general. Who do you got on the podium?
It's hard, but before that, I'm happy that we have to mention Latifi in this podcast.
Oh, yep,
So,
yeah. Yeah, Latifi podium that you have, that really hot take. Are you still feeling okay about that?
well, like, he can improve over the season. So I'm not this weekend anyway, but dead last. Yeah, Albon beating him significantly. But yeah, going back to the the podium predictions, I think. Okay, let's say I'm going to go. Verstappen will win.
Mm-hmm.
Leclerc second. Sainz third.
Okay. And in any of that too, do you see, I know this is kind of it's an out there question. You think Verstappen or that might not be far off, but part of me still thinks the Ferrari, I know Verstappen, you said had a little bit of a mistake on the last lap, but part of me thinks the Ferrari pound unit's a little bit faster. I'll predict that they get the fastest lap tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely think that could happen. But Leclerc did say in testing, I think on the long run pace, they're behind Red Bull anyway. So we'll see definitely on the long run pace how it goes. But I think going back to Mercedes, I think Mercedes could have sacrificed their qualifying as well to set up for race pace as well. So we could see them challenging for like the third place as well. Can't count them out, but
That's a
yeah.
good point. Yeah. And it's also Mercedes. So I'm just going to be bold. I hate to say it. I see some controversy coming early. This season's already been hyped up a lot, and I think fans are overly excited as opposed to previous seasons. I'm calling a big crash this race. Not that I want anyone ever to get injured, but part of me thinks some of Verstappen's antics is going to come out and have some chaos ensuing somewhere in this race. So may or may not happen. Part of me thinks because we also don't know the race strategy if this is a 2 or 3 stopper. I see that becoming a huge thing. Checo Perez normally for Red Bull is so good at conserving his tires. Not saying that's going to help him win this race particular, but I got one of the Ferraris, I think, winning this. If Verstappen doesn't crash, maybe P2, P3, and then part of me thinks maybe Mercedes will make a run. I think Lewis could have a chance, but that goes back like to what you said with the race pace. And I'm also gonna, not to call out any of our listeners, but there is the F1 diplomat who had a very hot take claiming that he thinks George was it going to wipe the floor with Lewis? I'm kind of laughing
No,
as I'm saying that,
gonna
or was
mop.
it?
He was going to mop Lewis.
Mop Lewis. Okay, I'm not going to agree with that. I think Lewis actually finishes surprisingly higher than George this race, so I'll go with that. But time will tell, obviously, as I say way too often on this podcast. So it'll be exciting to watch tomorrow. We'll be doing a Twitter Spaces immediately following the race as well, just to break down everything again, get everyone's reaction. Anything else before we sign off here at all, Rory?
I just want to make a public apology to Diplomat. I didn't mean to announce my secrets on that live stream, the YouTube, on the DRS live stream we did on the DRS on live stream we did today. So on AMG Den's channel. So I would like to apologize. I didn't mean to cause some hatred that went towards you. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's all playful, but that's the beauty of F1. You get a lot of different opinions, and you know what? He might not be getting any heat if what he said actually does come true, and that's the beauty of a 23-week season. So even one race can't predict everything, just like Ricciardo being P18 might not be the same thing. So thank you so much for all of our listeners. By the way, we did want to announce for the one or few listeners in Kenya, we did get an update from Apple Podcasts. We are currently the 81st P81 for the sports section of podcasts in the country of Kenya. So that is awesome. And we'll look forward to getting you guys some more episodes out here sooner or later. Happy watching, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, especially to those people in Kenya, the true backbone of this podcast.
Amen.